So let's jump into our main topic, the one big beautiful bill.
It comes with so many different changes to the tax code, and there's a lot of things in there that you want to be aware of for 2025 and looking into 2026.
I mentioned this covers a lot of topics, and we're going to focus this on 3 specific ones here today. So first, talking about charitable giving. Next, we'll talk about enhanced senior deduction, and finally, the increased cap on self-deduction, which is your state and local income tax. All right. So let's jump into the first one, which is charitable giving.
There are going to be changes to the way that you can deduct charitable gifts on your tax return starting in 2026. So really the important thing to look at is, if I'm interested in giving to charity, am I going to have a better or a larger impact if I make that gift in 2025 or after those new changes go into effect in 2026? So just a refresher, to actually get the deduction on your tax return, you need to be itemizing. And for a lot of people, in fact, 90% of households are taking the standard deduction.
Right.
So in relation to history, the standard deduction is still quite high. You want to make sure, you want to look to see if your gift or your other itemized deductions would even get you beyond the standard deduction in any case.
Right. So just to dive into that real quick, and as you look at the standard deduction for married filing joint is base $31,500, right? Then you look at, on top of that, you have the $3,200. So right there, if you are 65 and older, I mean, your total standard deduction right now is going to be, $34,700. So that's a big number.
Yes.
And I always like just to reiterate, based on your state and local income taxes, like your real estate taxes, your charitable deductions, maybe medical, costs that can factor into adding all those buckets up to see if you even get above that number there.
Right.
And if you're not, then you're usually taking a standard deduction. So just wanted to lay that out there, and certainly that's important because those are big numbers, and just want to make sure you understand the differences of making charitable gifts and what you're getting for that or not.
Exactly.
So this is important because the laws are changing for 2026, where there is a 0.5% AGI floor, which we'll explain here just in a moment. But then itemized deductions are going to be capped at 35%. So even if you're at the 37% tax bracket, that's going to be capped at 35%. So let's dig into that 0.5% AGI floor, which basically means, if you make $500,000, 0.5% of that is $2,500. So what that means is that you have to donate more than that $2,500 to start to get a deduction for it. Obviously, if your income's higher, that number is going to grow, and vice versa.
A lot of people might have an annual goal that perhaps they want to donate, let's say, $15,000 a year for 5 years. And that's part of your overall budget, part of your overall plan. We could look at, is there any potential tax savings for bunching maybe 2-3 years worth of donations into 2025 while there's no AGI threshold and while your deductions are not capped at 35%.
So this is why it's important as we think about year-end planning to really take a snapshot of where you are today. You can get a sense of what you're trending like here in 2025. And you can start to run projections on what 2026 would look like, or even, monetize the difference between the tax laws just to understand, based on your habits, does it make sense to take action today or not? And, as we think about taking action, one of the things that we're huge fans of are donor advised funds. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, donor advised funds are great. They allow people to be even more flexible with the timing and the amount that they donate to charity. It's a great tool to be able to have this kind of flexibility from year to year. We find that clients use them very successfully, and they also allow you to invest the money that you donate or that you earmark for charity today, even if you don't plan on actually giving it to any particular charity right now. You have flexibility to perhaps grow that balance over time, give it to lots of different organizations. They can be super useful, and we use them a lot.
Yeah, and certainly just the key part of this section here is just to go into the end of the year, eyes wide open, and just be aware of how some of the laws are changing just based on, the charitable giving side. Right. Let's keep going. Let's talk about the enhanced senior deduction.
This is what has been discussed as the no tax on Social Security. It actually is somewhat of a misnomer because it actually does not affect the specific taxability of Social Security specifically. What it really is, it's an additional deduction that's available for people who are age 65 and older, and this is starting in 2025. So if you're single, and you're over 65, you get an additional $6,000. That's doubled if you are married filing jointly. And this is something that you can capture even if you are itemizing. However, it is subject to a phase out.
Right.
So if your modified adjusted gross income is above $75,000 if you're single, or double that if you're married, then this deduction starts to fade away.
So as we dig into that, what are some questions you want to be thinking about asking yourself? And I think the first one, just to jump in, is like, am I near the MAGI threshold?
Mm-hmm.
This is, again, a big part of our year-end planning to understand base case, where you're at as of today. What about reducing, your MAGI? What are my options there?
If you are age 70 and a half and above, you may have the ability to make a qualified charitable distribution from your IRA. So what this is you can donate some money from your IRA directly to charity. Direct is the operative word, and that can reduce your overall income. Basically, whatever you donate to charity is not counted towards your overall income.
And then finally, also just dialing it down and understanding, what does this deduction mean to me versus the other opportunity costs based on the actions you might be looking to take, like, Roth conversions, or just to maintain your lifestyle as well.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I think the message there is just, it's all about awareness. And this is a big part of this piece of it because, we see a lot of folks in this range and then in the phase out range that, again, it's not what you earn, it's what you keep, and deductions are a big part of that too. All right, let's talk about the last one, which is a hot topic, and it has been for quite some time. As we know that the state and local income tax deduction has been capped, at $10,000 for some time here.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the major changes that's in effect here for 2025. That ultimately that cap has been increased to $40,000. But keep in mind, there are some caps for earned income that can kick you back down to the $10,000 mark. So
right.
As we think about those phase outs, if your modified adjusted gross income is north of $500,000,
mm-hmm.
single or married filing joint.
Right. That's very critical to understand.
That's a big one because there's no adjustment on this one if you're married filing joint. Then you start to get phased out and ultimately kick back down to being capped at $10,000.
Right. That cap actually is at $600,000 of income, and you're reduced back to that $10,000 maximum deduction. This is really important for people that live in states that have high tax rates, or if just your property taxes are on the higher end. Especially if you've been taking the standard deduction for years, you want to make sure that you're aware of this because it could potentially be a really powerful deduction. So it's good to check to see if itemizing could actually make sense for you this year.
So the last one is we think about small business owners or business owners overall. This is something that we encourage you to be proactive with your accountants, as there could be some other ways to make sure you're maximizing your state tax deductions, or at least the payments you're making to the state. So as we conclude this session of Sageview Wealth, first, as we talked about, it's all about awareness. This is a big part of these conversations. Right now is the opportunity to take a snapshot of where you stand, just being aware of the ever-changing tax laws out there that you want to make sure that you're taking action before 12/31 this year, or just go into it eyes wide open to understand how 2026 is going to change.